So once again, I'm in that resuscitation room with so many people in there setting everything up once again for him. And I just remember thinking, what is happening to my child? Why does he keep stopping breathing? Like, why is no one knowing what's going on? Welcome to the Jess Nahu podcast, where we delve into the heart of extraordinary stories, resilience, adversity, advocacy, special needs, birth trauma, and so much more. I'm your host, Jess Nahu. Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome to another episode of the Jess Nahu podcast. Today we are going to go through another story of Hawaiki and his story, and our story, I guess. And I thought I would just recap on the end of the last one about him. So I think we were at the stage where I had met with the obstetrician in hospital just after he was born. This was about 3 weeks after he was born. It took a while for them to come and see us properly and for us to have a download of exactly what went happen, a recap of exactly what happened. And so, so that was that story, and how, their system is just so shocking, with only knowing someone's story 20 minutes prior to them coming in is just not on. And this is where systems need to be changed. So after that had happened, Hawaiki was, I think, in hospital for another week. So we were in special care. So he was originally in NICU for a week and then moved to special care for 3 weeks. He was taking a little while to get his, oxygen adjusted, being able to take milk and, suck on the breast. And we finally got there. And, I have these vivid memories of even Vera being just at hospital all the time. So Vera's birthday is actually, they're only 2 days apart, our kids. So yeah, her birthday was 2 days after he was born. And I still remember that of my beautiful friends, Jules and Trace, had taken Vera to a park and at the beach because they just wanted to try and celebrate her and give her some space after what had just happened with Hawaiki. But I just remember, all over that December, like pretty much that first summer where she was just in hospital for Hawaiki. But I remember when she first met him, and it was so incredible. It really was incredible. She was like, "That's my baby." And she just has absolutely adored him right from the start. But, she's been through this as well. I feel like she has lost parts of her childhood because of being in hospital so much with him. So I had this other memory of when we were finally allowed to take him out into like a communal area instead of just his room. And it was so exciting. So you push them in their little like hospital kind of bassinet thing. It's basically just like a little table on wheels. But we got to take him out, and she was so excited just without being in, the clinical hospital setting of a room. And she just loved being able to take him outside. And not that it was outside, it was like somewhat an enclosed outside-ish part, I guess, of the hospital. So it wasn't really outside, it was just in the middle of a centre block. And so we could do that and take him to just different parts around the ward and go for walks every now and then. So we did that. And I remember sitting the first aid CPR baby course that they run through with you. So you go into a room and you sit it before you leave. I think when you've been through such drastic situations, they want to try and educate you as much as they can, and that was a good thing. I think that was a really good thing for us to be able to learn that before we left. But so we were in there for 4 weeks all up, and we were home on the 13th of December, and all was going okay. Like we had, lots of child health nurses come out just checking on him, and he seemed to be doing okay. And he was really upset in the car so many times. I just had this vivid memory of I was dropping, I think, my husband he had a Christmas party and for work, and on the way back he was just screaming because he'd woken up. And like, I know babies they often are upset in the cars. They're not always fans of being in the car, but this was next level screaming, and I had to pull over off the highway, and I pulled off to an exit and into a car park and just trying to calm him because it was next level. But as time went on, then it was actually Christmas Eve, and we just noticed a few things. So that night we thought he was kind of struggling a bit to breathe, and I was looking it up a lot, as you do, Google everything. And I had found that babies, when they're earthside and newborns, that they can, just hold their breath a little bit, and then just getting their, resuscitation and airways flowing and that. So it can take quite a bit for that to happen. So I was like, oh, okay. But the next morning, that night, I remember it was, quite constant. And I'd had to move into the spare room because I just wanted my husband and my daughter to get some sleep. So I'd moved him and I into the spare room, and I'd had no sleep. I just couldn't stop listening to him and the breathing on and off. And so the next morning decided to take him to the doctor. So we went to the doctor. It was just a big generic doctor, and this is Christmas morning. And she's like, he sounds a little rattly in the airways. I think you're going to have to take him to hospital. It might be, I think she said bronchiolitis. So we went to the hospital. We went, all four of us on Christmas Day, went into emergency, and he'd gone downhill, but then he kind of perked back up and he was a little stable. They were monitoring him, and we'd been there for a few hours, but they just wanted to keep him for a few more hours to just monitor him, just to see what he was like. And then, so we thought, okay, so I actually went down and got something to eat because it was late afternoon by this stage. And then my husband was going to take our daughter home because she was getting restless. She was only 3. And, being in a hospital so much all the time at 3 years old can just, it would send anyone stir crazy at that age. So I went down to get something to eat, and I've come back up, and I've just been told we need to put him into a coma. He's just been dropping in and out, and his oxygen levels are going very low. And we're not sure if the next time he stops breathing, he's going to come back from it. And I was like, wow, that just escalated so quickly. Like, I was gone for maybe 15 minutes, and that has just changed. So by this stage, my husband was waiting for me to come back, and then he was going home with Vera. And as they're doing that, they're rushing us into the resuscitation room. If you've ever been in the resuscitation room, it is extremely overwhelming. As they're preparing to put him into a coma, there was so many people in there. Like, I remember counting, 12 to 20 different people fluctuating in and out. And they're setting everything up and organising everything, getting all the machines they needed, doing all the tests, blood sugar levels, everything before they're about to put him under. And it is full on. I remember having a social worker there, and I was just sitting back, just watching them all do their stuff and preparing everything for him because he was going in and out. It was, once again, just really full on, just he, basically losing him in and out again. And the social worker said to me, do you want to just step outside whilst they put him into the coma? And I was like, no way. I am not leaving his side. I will stand back and let them do their work, but I am never, ever, ever leaving his side. So he got put under, and then we got taken up to ICU. So now we've transferred out of the NICU, the newborn ICU, to the general ICU ward. And so there we were, back in ICU again. And so this was all happening here. They were running all these tests, like viral tests, and just trying to find something that was wrong with him, but everything was coming back clear. Everything. And then they were like, we think it just must be bronchiolitis. So they didn't really know because nothing can confirm that. And then, so we were in ICU. So he was under for, I remember it was about 36 hours. It wasn't quite 2 days. And the head ICU man wanted to just basically tried to tell us that we're going to bring him out. And I was like, no, I want a meeting first. We're going to talk about this. And they just said, no, he's fine to come out now. He's been stable for over 24 hours. But I was like, no, like we tried to delay it a bit. So we did get delayed a bit. And at this stage, though, I remember being in the room with him, and I said to the nurse, I was like, can you just check his foot? I just feel there's something going on with his foot. And because he was being run through all of these antibiotics, so the machines that were laid there for him were just insane. So they're running all these antibiotics trying to clear something in his system. And when they do the IV through with running it through their system, they then go and bandage it up to cover it, and they've got to check it every so many hours. But I just felt something was off with the one in his foot. Like I think he had another one in his arm, another one in his other arm, like he had numerous running through him. And that itself is scary, like seeing your baby who at this stage, so he wasn't even a month old. Oh, no, he was. He'd just been a month old, sorry. That was Christmas. So, yeah, he was just a month old. And he'd already spent the first 4 weeks in hospital, like in ICU and special care. And we're back in ICU again, and they're worried that he's not going to come back from him stopping breathing. So they're running all the antibiotics through him. And when we checked that foot, so where the needle had gone, it had then leaked all of the antibiotics into his tissues instead of into a vein. And his foot was so red and purple and inflamed. It was like, say that's his foot, then there's this bulb of where it was, and it looked like all these blisters as well within this bright red, and I'm talking bright red, almost like this. It was a bit darker because it had slight purple colour to it, but like it was horrendous. And I just went off my nut. I was just like, what the absolute, like, what are you doing to my child? Like, this kid has been through so much, and we're just adding all these extra things onto him. And it was just insane. So that had happened. So we'd been able to delay them bringing him out. They waited another night. So then the next morning, they're like, no, he's stable enough now. We're going to bring him out. So they brought him out of the coma, and he was just slowly coming back. But then, ICU, they move you so quickly. They're like, all right, he's out. I think they waited just a couple of hours. Like, we're going to move you to the ward now. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like, it was only a couple of days ago, you're worried about my son not coming back from stopping breathing, and now he's been induced coma, and you brought him out and he's moved straight to the ward. And then, so anyway, we're moved to the ward, moved all of our stuff. But I have these memories, though, of in ICU over Christmas, and, lots of family members that were local were coming up and just sitting in the waiting room in ICU, and no one ever really wanted to go see him because they just wanted him to be. But they were just there to support us and bringing us food, and that was just really beautiful, having that support there and just having people to talk to. So when my husband and I would swap, so one of us would go in and be with him, another one would be out in the waiting room, and we just wouldn't leave him. So except for sometimes I think they would try to make you leave, by memory. This is just so long ago now, trying to remember all the details. But anyway, so we are now moved into the ward and get to the ward, and they're like, oh yeah, we just want to monitor him for 4 hours and then you can go home. And I was like, I don't fucking think so. Like, my son has just been brought out of a coma. I'm not going to wait here just for 4 hours and go home. So everyone doesn't like me at the hospital because I have a voice. And when we're there, I'm always questioning and putting my foot down with stuff, because I think when you go through something so drastic with him when he was born, you know that you're the voice. You're the only one that has the voice for them, so you have to speak up. So, yes, I'm definitely not liked, and I'm pretty sure they've got a file on me in the hospital. But that's another story. But so we waited till the next morning, and then he was okay, and then we did get sent home. So we were home, and then he was doing okay, on and off, and then so we were home by, I think, just before New Year's, about the 29th, 30th of December, and then we're home for not quite a week. I think it was about 5 days. And I noticed this breathing pattern again, and I'm like, the heck? And so we took him in to get observed again for observation at the hospital. So we'd taken him in, and the doctors are like, his oxygen saturations was dropping again and again and again. And then he'd come good for a bit. And I'm just like, okay, what's going on? So he's in the little hospital bassinet under the lights and making sure he's warm. And then they're running more testing again. And then he's fine for a little bit. And then he just drops. And so then again, they're calling the alarm bells, and we're being rushed to the resuscitation room again. So this was, I think about the 4th of January in 2020. And so once again, I'm in that resuscitation room with so many people in there setting everything up once again for him. And I just remember thinking, the heck is this? Like, what is happening to my child? Why does he keep stopping breathing? Like, why is no one knowing what's going on? And at this point, so this was like late in the afternoon, and so he was doing okay. And then when they went to resuscitate him, I think it was early to midnight. So it would have maybe been around 7, 8 o'clock at night. So he'd already been there for a period, and then he just dropped. So he was being resuscitated again, and then they're like, we need to put him back into a coma again. So we went through that all over again. This stage, this one was only me. I drove him to the hospital, and I took him in there. Or actually, maybe I think my husband might have dropped me off. I think he dropped me off, and then he went home because it was late. We've got Vera, and she needs to be at home. So I'm in there all by myself going through all of this over again. And I remember them talking to, it was another lady that was on for the head of ICU, and she's like, I just don't think we've got enough room or beds. We might have to transfer you to Queensland Children's Hospital. But what I think was really happening was they're like, something serious is going on with this kid, and we need to get him up to the Children's Hospital, just because they've got so much more doctors, specifically all for kids, and with all the different specialists within that hospital. And she's like, is that okay with you? And I'm like, yeah, whatever needs to happen needs to happen. So they put him in the coma again, and then we had to wait for the transfer service from the hospital. So they had to get top paramedics to come down and get him, and then transfer him up to that hospital. And I remember that it wasn't until about maybe 3:30 a.m. we were leaving finally to get transferred up there, because it took a while. Like, it's, the 4th of January, so much going on at that time. And here's Hawaiki in another coma, and he's in a transfer little bassinet thing, hospital type transferable cot, but it's all caged, so it's all covered within this, all the pieces covered, and he's just in this, looks like a little box, a plastic box. And so I remember arriving at QCH so early in the morning, and we're being transferred straight to ICU. So here we are in ICU again, and just the memories of those halls of being in a brand new hospital, bigger than you can ever think, for our kids that need our help. So we're there really early, and obviously we don't see the doctors until the next morning. And I remember there was head doctors that were on, but they just fluctuate and just come and introduce themselves. And by the next morning, I've got family arriving to try and be there for us. And I remember this doctor saying to me, well, it doesn't take a genius to work out that this kid is having seizures, and there's all this stuff going on, and just rattling out all this information to me. And I'm just like, hang on a sec. You don't need to talk to me like that. Like, I'm a human being. And he's like, well, it's not like science to work out there's all this stuff going on. I was just like, what a asshole. Like, just how can you talk to someone like that? Like, their baby has just been put into this second coma, and you're really not quite sure if they're going to come out of this because of all the information that you're loading on me with him. And yeah, there's just so many aspects of those systems that are in place with hospitals that need to be changed. Like, parents are human beings. Parents are going through fights of their life with their children in ICU. Like, it's just something that you never wish upon anyone. So that was my memory of that. And following this day, we were in there, I think, for another month. So much happened. So many, many more instances happened. Like, the story is huge for what he's been through. And I'm going to wrap that up today of where we're at with him being put into a coma twice, having the antibiotics leak into his tissues, and his foot being so balloon-like and bright red purple, with, I think, definitely a misdiagnosis of bronchiolitis, because this was happening again and he wasn't sick this time at all. Being transferred to a bigger hospital with specialists everywhere, and being greeted by the head doctor who's in charge of ICU telling you that it doesn't take a scientist to work out what's happening with this child, and just downloading all these different options on me. So then the saga will continue, and next time I will tell you about the next day of what happens while we're in hospital again for another 4 weeks. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your support continually. And I can't wait to tell you about the stuff that I have learnt for our babies. And it always gets me. Having a special needs child is one of the hardest things you will go through. Having them fight for their life at such an early stage is really huge, and I've learnt so much along this way for these kids, and literally experiencing step by step by step, day by day by day, and that's all you can take this life for, is day by day and step by step, because we really, really don't know what's around the corner, and we don't know what's going to happen to our kids, but all we can do is keep believing. We have to keep believing. We have to show them love, and that we are strong, and that we are there for them, and we will never, ever leave their side. So as we keep continually having to fight for Hawaiki, we will keep sharing his story and the parts of this journey that will just throw you through the roof and go, what the absolute heck? But thank you again for joining me today, and we will just keep on sharing and keep on delivering and keep on believing. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.